how many clients are you signing per month to hit that? Are you having success on LinkedIn generating clients?
I would personally was fat. My spiritual life kind of sucked, and I wasn't good with my family.
How you guys generate leads? How are you signing so many cases per month? What's your strategy there? Welcome to another episode of Scales of Success podcast. Today I am joined by Marco Brown, founder, managing attorney at Brown Family Law. Today we're going to be talking about intake specifically. But before we do that, Marco, tell me a little bit about your law firm, what you guys practice.
Sure. Thanks a lot for having me on, Ryan.
Absolutely.
So we're in Salt Lake City. We do divorce and child custody cases, and that is it. We have been doing that I've been doing it since 2010. In 12 is when I really made the switch to just doing divorce, and then that's all I've done since then. And we, at this point, handle more divorces and help more people than anybody else in the state of Utah.
Amazing. So, quick question about that, because something I talk to a lot during marketing consults, believe it or not, with law firms is specialization. It's my professional opinion that the law firm market is extremely saturated, especially if we're talking about family, injury, accident. And a lot of smaller law firms want to come in and try and compete at brutally competitive markets for brutally competitive practice areas. And I always tell them all the time, like, look, find a specialization within the sub-practice area. So if you do personal injury and then you do trucking accidents, find something within that we can start with and build upon, especially if you're doing less than $1 million a year. You're just not going to be able to compete. So how did you arrive at that specialization, and how long were you practicing kind of general family law or general law before you arrived there?
So general law was about 2010 to 2012 until I figured out that I was really good at family law, and then it just became all I did. And how we determined just to do essentially divorce, that's about 70% of what we do. So that really was just a numbers game. We looked at the numbers, we saw that we made more money on divorces, and they were usually better clients than everybody else. So we really kind of went in heavy on the divorce aspect. Whereas other law firms in the area, they'll do more paternity cases or modifications or something along those lines. But it was really a numbers play. We looked at the data and we thought, okay, these are the clients we like and they make us better money than most everybody else, so let's just do that.
Did you have to take, to use a cliche, one step back to take two steps forward? Did you lose any revenue or momentum when you decided to deep dive into that specialization?
No, absolutely not. So we in fact upped our revenues quite significantly when we made that determination. And a lot of that came from the fact that we raised our prices. So what we did is we priced ourselves out of a market. So when you do paternity in family law, that tends to be the lower range, the lower kind of income range and pay range, and then divorce is above that, right? So all we did was we just raised our prices and then changed our marketing a little bit, but we just got paid more per case, and we liked our clients better, and we were able to do fewer cases because they were better clients, and we made more money doing it.
Awesome. So you mentioned in our little green room that you're comfortable talking about numbers. What are you guys on pace to do this year in revenue?
This year, somewhere between 7.5 and 8.
Okay. And how many clients are you signing per month to hit that ballpark?
What's our average number is somewhere around 53.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk about.
I'm like looking up here trying to remember the numbers. I actually have them.
No, it's fine.
Otherwise, I'd be able to like bring it up and talk to you about
this is not Shark Tank. Don't worry. Ballpark is fine. So let's talk about marketing. Let's talk about lead generation, because I actually found you because I do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn for myself. I actually have 3 different consultancies, agencies that operates. One of them obviously works with law firms, but LinkedIn has always been a great place. I've kind of treated it as like a micro blogging platform, if you will. Kind of like what Twitter used to be, but a little bit more long form. I've had a lot of success there. It seems like you are as well. So talk to me about that. Are you having success on LinkedIn generating clients? Is it more of a branding play? Talk to me about your strategy there.
Yeah, it's more of a branding, and well, it's actually less of that. There's some branding that goes along with it, and then we get referrals off of it. Although I don't track the referrals that come in off of LinkedIn specifically, I probably should. But the way it started for me, and still the way I tend to use it, is a little bit of history. So I started my law firm in 2010, and then from 2010 to about 2016, I did not know the business of law at all. I was very bad at the business. I was a really good attorney, but I was very bad at the business of law, and my life sucked. So I had to figure some things out in 15, 16 and get better at the business side of things. But I looked back on my journey and I realized that I went through 5 or 6 years of complete hell because no one would tell me how to be successful because they all kind of gate kept that sort of thing. So I thought, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to tell everybody how I'm successful, the mistakes I made, the things I've done correct. I'm going to talk about success. I'm going to talk about the money I have now because I think that's really important, and I want people to be able to look at it and say, oh, okay, I don't have to do this. I don't have to go through these years, of complete hell where I personally was fat, my spiritual life kind of sucked, and I wasn't good to my family. I don't want to see my colleagues go through that. So that's how I use LinkedIn. So it's almost more of a pro bono thing than anything else. And then, we get referrals off of it as well. And I could probably monetize it better than I do, but I actually try not to monetize it so I don't.
Yeah, because what I had found you through, which we'll talk about as we get through this conversation, is an intake process. And I know you have a team that's helping you out managing, because I was speaking to the person who was doing that. But a lot of the content seems to maybe attract lawyers as opposed to clients. And I think, something that I come across with our law firm clients all the time. We specialize in search marketing. We do a lot of consulting when it comes to general. I'm a big content marketer. And I believe that every business should be creating a tremendous amount of content on every single platform. But I think kind of finding your voice in your audience is key, because I think a lot of people look at LinkedIn as a platform and say, I'm a family lawyer. How am I just going to get on there and talk about divorce and all those things on LinkedIn? So a lot of your content seems to be a little bit more geared towards, as you said, building a law firm, the things that you're going through, similar to what I said, almost using it as a stream of consciousness when it comes to what you're going through with your business. And a lot of lawyers might look at that and say, that's a waste of time. Why do you want to talk to other lawyers? But I've done dozens of these interviews. Almost every single lawyer will come on here and say that referrals from other attorneys are a big part of how they do business. And being able to build your network of other attorneys and position yourself as a leader and an expert just using LinkedIn and having people manage for you, I think is incredibly powerful. So if LinkedIn isn't one of your top lead generation channels, talk to me about how you guys generate leads. How are you signing so many cases per month?
Yeah, so about 80%, last time I looked at our data, it was about 80% of all of our new clients coming in were off of SEO and LSAs. So, content and our SEO play. We've been around for a while. I got in 2010, created a website kind of immediately, then just started writing not great content, but it was content, and Google was fine with that sort of thing back then. Now you have to be much more sophisticated about it at that point, but it gave us a good foundation, so we have a pretty good SEO foundation. And we're opening up SEO offices now, so things are coming off of that. And then about 20% comes from referrals from other attorneys. Almost all of our referrals come from other attorneys, actually. Some come from previous clients, but almost all from other attorneys.
Yeah. So I want to actually quickly talk about your search real quick. So you said you're opening up new offices. So that means finding specific places across the state, dropping a pin, getting a verified GBP. Are you getting actual commercial space? What's your strategy there?
Yeah, the way we're looking at it, you can't do it. My SEO guys say, hey, look, you can't go get a co-working space or anything like that. So what I'm trying to find are other attorneys, or even CPAs, really, but other attorneys usually that don't do the same thing I do.
Yeah.
And then I get a suite within their office.
Yeah. We actually do this for, we're in Miami, Florida, and this is one of the injury accident capitals of the world. And one of our scaling strategies for, it's just I can't put into words how brutally competitive it is from an organic and even a paid marketing point of view. The market's just priced itself out. Unless you're Morgan & Morgan, you're literally willing to spend, $15,000 for a case, then the market's priced itself out. So traditional SEO too has gotten pushed down in terms of the actual ability for people to find and see your website, because there's ads, there's LSAs, there's maps pack, and then there's also, you're fighting the FindLaws and the Avos to just get visibility in the traditional listings. So that maps pack, right, that local SEO thing that we're talking about is incredibly important. But the problem is that you're capped based on, especially more population dense areas like South Florida, maybe 1 mile radius around your office. And not to mention injury and accident, 80% of cases come from the lower 50% income demographic. And most injury and accident law firms want to stamp it right in Brickell, right in Coral Gables, right in all the nice areas. So they're wondering why those don't produce. So what we've developed is this process for research very extensive, using actually some AI tools to help us look at like demographic data, income data, population density data, and then also layering on, as you said, the number of competition in that area, because you're basically directly competing against whatever's in your vicinity. Highly recommended for any lawyer out there who's not the biggest, willing to get into the what am I willing to pay per customer game, but also really trying to attack organic search, because it's still, as you said, Marco, probably one of the best ways to generate clients for law firms. Incredibly effective scaling strategy, because the cost for commercial real estate is cheap. It's not, you can get a door for, $200, $300 a month in a place that you'd want to be. You just get it verified, put a sign on the door, send it in a video to Google, start collecting reviews. And those Google business profiles, according to our data, anywhere from 20 in very, very small markets up to 200 in large market phone calls per month. And again, when you're starting to think about 2, 4, 5, 10 of them, it's one of the, I don't want to say best kept secrets because I'm always talking about it, but it's one of the best strategies for scaling for a law firm. So we talked about lead source. We talked about LinkedIn. Are you doing anything else on social in terms of like video content creation, Instagram, TikTok, anything like that?
So we have a YouTube, and I used to make a lot more content, video content, than I do, but I kind of went away from it. We're going to get back onto social. So we have a new marketing team, and we have a new branding strategy and so forth, and social is going to be part of that. But I've been super remiss about it for a long time.
Most attorneys are. That's why, there's a stat, it's probably coming from a marketing agency who does video, but like only 8% of law firms are actively creating video content. And when we talk about a brutally competitive red ocean space, video is kind of one of those last blue ocean opportunities, because of the fact that it's really, really, really difficult for law firms to do it consistently because of all the things that you guys have going on. I understand too. I mean, I have 3 YouTube channels. I run them all myself. I actually built our own studio here in Miami. I'm in there every single week, and it's overwhelmingly exhaustive, but it's such an important competitive advantage, especially as we come into the time of AI and just the written word being commoditized in a lot of ways, and just information in general, especially in the legal space, being commoditized by ChatGPT, AI tools, all sorts of different things, and also just misinformation too. Video is one of those things where you can build a bit of a moat around your business, especially if you know how to do it right. And also YouTube is the second most used search engine on the planet behind Google. Mm-hmm. And search intent-based traffic, meaning people that are going to a platform and saying, this is what I need, this is what I'm looking for, just converts much better than trying to be on social and billboards and radio and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's exactly true.
So, highly recommend it if you can do it. There's ways and strategies that we coach and consult with our clients in terms of like batching and stuff like that, but there's really no shortcut to it. That's why it works. It just takes time and consistency. So let's move into the intake, but really the pre-intake process. So before we get into your intake system here, which is really amazing, let's talk pre-intake. So especially in the family law space, settle a debate for me. Paid consult, free consult. What do you guys do?
Look, there are a lot of people who are going to say free consults all day long, every day. I can tell you from experience, I did it for, I think, 7 years, and I would have 4 to 6 a day. Maybe 1 or 2 of those people were anything other than tire kickers. And one of the problems, aside from the time, was that we had to screen people out. So we have this very elaborate screening process. And it was terrible. Like you had just so many different moving parts that the intake team had to memorize and so forth. And I didn't like it. It just didn't work. And then a guy named Lee Rosen challenged me and said, "Hey, look, just do it, right? Charge $250 an hour. If you don't like doing it, you can always go back to free. Yeah. It's totally fine." And I trusted Lee, and I thought, okay, let's do it. And it was that quick. Like, it was amazing, the difference.
Yeah.
We got rid of 95% of all tire kickers, all crazy people that we met with, really kind of low-income people that could never actually afford us an attorney, saved a whole bunch of time. But what you do have to do is when you start charging, you have to become salespeople at that point. Your intake team has to be professionalized, and they need to become sellers and closers. So that's the big thing, and that's why I'm convinced why a lot of attorneys don't do this, is they don't want to create that system. But I can tell you, having done both for years and years and years, and probably haven't done 10,000 intakes at this point over my career, paid is by far the way to go.
So, I mean, I would agree, especially if you're going up market, and I think too often lawyers look at, just like agencies, they look at law as an umbrella, right? But the nuances of practice area it's night and day, right? The difference between family and injury and accident and business.
They're not the same. They're not in the same ball field.
Not
They're
even close.
totally different industries. Totally different.
And I agree that, in the injury and accident space, like I just said, a lot of the people you're going to be getting in are lower income people that you can't charge. And it's also just a numbers game. Like Morgan & Morgan will tell you, like, we will take every single phone call, even if it's a tire kicker. We do not care. But in your space, the process of going through a divorce or child custody is such a long, painful, drawn out process. There's so many questions. There's so much emotion involved. There's so much uncertainty. You get people that are all different parts of the cycle. Like, hey, I just want to talk to you because me and my wife have been fighting a lot, and like I want to get out. There's just so many different things that I agree that charging for a consult in your space is definitely a must. So before we get into your intake form, let's talk about the intake process, right? Because you said that the intake people have to be sellers and closers. So first things first, right? A lead comes in. What do you prefer? Is it a form submission? Is it a booked Calendly? Is it a phone call? Phone call. Okay.
Phone call's the gold standard. Absolutely.
Okay.
Like
So-
if you get a lead in any other manner, my intake team's intent is to take them from whatever that is, whether it's a form or whatever, and get them on the phone as quickly as possible.
So, okay, so you still have like live chat and forms on your
Yes.
website. Okay. Have you ever just used phone numbers, period?
No, we've never gotten rid of everything else. And that is a strategy, and that's actually not a bad strategy. I know a lot of criminal defense attorneys that do that, and they've been successful with it.
We do a lot of paid search ads, and we do only calls because of the fact that any lead decays over time. They submit a form, they're very intent at that moment, but again, especially in your space where it's very hot and cold, maybe they make up with their wife or husband afterwards and like, yeah, I don't really need this anymore, right? You want to get them on the phone, I agree.
Or they just go somewhere else within a minute, right? Like that. So for our people, and I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but the point is when somebody calls and it's a voicemail or we have a form or something like that, the goal is to get somebody on the phone within 1 minute, to respond within a minute and get them talking.
I love that. So phone call comes in, right? You have what, call answering service? Is it in-house, out-house, 24/7? Talk to me about who's actually picking up the phones.
So our people pick up the phones. My goal is to have a live call on every call. So we have 4 people on intake, and then if all 4 of them are for some reason indisposed, talking to other people, then it goes to an answering service and we call people back immediately after the answering service. But our point is to talk to every person who calls in real time, our team specifically.
And so you have 24/7 intake, not
Oh no,
answer.
during
Okay.
business hours. So we don't have 24/7. We've looked at the data. I've thought about that, but we just don't get enough calls to create a system that is such
Sure.
that it's actually worth it.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so those people work for you full time, or is it like a company that so you went out and hired those people? How did you, who are you looking for? Like customer service based people that were previously secretaries looking to work remote? How did you find those people?
No, we want people with sales experience and customer service experience to come into the office and act as sales professionals.
Okay, and what's their comp structure? Is it base? Is it commission? Is it
Base plus commission.
base plus commission? Nice. Okay, cool.
Yep. So they get a commission every time they get a paid consultation comes in.
Okay, and if they become a client too, or just if they
The pay. So their job is to get the consultations in.
Got it.
And then the attorney's job is to close them. Although, so here's kind of the rub. What we've had to figure out is that the intake team will sometimes maximize for those consultations, but they're not the best consultations. So we've actually had to go through and grade them and then figure out you need to be getting as A and B people. If you get a whole bunch of C's or D's, we're not paying you for that sort of stuff. So it becomes a little more complicated once you really get into high volume. But it's worked well for us so far.
So this is the script, again, that your in-house intake people run through. Is there any deviation on the script, or are you just stick to the script, stick to the script, stick to the script?
We stick to the script as much as humanly possible because we know almost to a percent how it converts if you stick to it.
Okay, perfect. So they give them a greeting here. At this point, you're collecting their name, email, phone number?
Just the first name right now.
Just the first name. And are they going into a CRM when they call automatically? Are they added?
Yes.
They are. What are you guys using as a CRM, just out of curiosity?
Oh, shoot. I can never remember what this is called. Help Scout, I think.
Okay, cool. Okay, so then you go into the fact-finding process. So now you're asking them questions based on whatever it is that they're calling about. If it's custody, if it's divorce, if it's whatever that looks like.
Yes.
So talk to me about this process here. Like, how long does this usually last? Is this where like the sales stuff starts to come into play?
Yeah, I mean, it always comes into play, right? So the way you sell is you get people to know, like, and trust you, and the way you do that most easily is you elicit their story, right, and have them tell you their story, and then you repeat back to them that which they say, so they know that you're listening to them. That builds trust. So that's what we're doing from kind of moment one here, and a successful phone call is probably between 5 and 7 minutes on average. The last time I looked at the data.
Okay. So these are the questions here, right? These are how long you've been married, what area of Utah, has anything filed yet? So especially, I mean, look, I do a lot of sales myself, so this is essentially like a 2 birds, 1 stone thing. It's, well, probably 3 in this space, because I would say empathy is probably a big part of what you guys are trying to sell here as well. Empathy, fact finding from a discovery point of view to qualify them, right? Because again, you don't want to your point, like you don't want to have them oversell and sell some stinkers into the pipeline, right? Because then you're stuck and it's not worth that $300 consult. It's happened to me before in the past as well.
Because we just have to give it, if we make a mistake on the consult, we just have to give the money back, and then we're out the money and the time, and it's not good.
Yeah. And again, the time thing too, I think is incredibly important, because something where we're doing much more intake coaching and consulting with our clients, because we work on a month-to-month basis. We don't do long-term contracts, and we sell based on outcome and results. And ultimately, we can drive 200 phone calls to a firm all day long, but if they don't close them, the finger comes back at us every single time. Right. And it's usually not a marketing
money on
problem.
Marketing if your intake and sales is leaky like a sieve, man.
And it's to back my agency people here for a moment. You know, it can be challenging working with law firms sometimes, because to your point, and I don't mean this as a sign of disrespect, you were trained in the law, not in business, right? Yeah. And the business side of things comes through experience, it comes through time, and a lot of lawyers that are, hiring agencies, putting all their basket into the marketing basket, haven't been through that yet. They're like, oh, my friend told me that SEO is a good thing. I can spend $5,000 a month. Let's do it. It takes time. The phone calls come in, and then they're not picking up because they're in court, right? Or it's mind blowing how much time that happens. Or they're like, I have to talk to every single lead that comes in because I'm the attorney. They want to talk to me, and I'm like, they don't. In fact,
they don't really want to talk to you.
So talk to me about that, right? Help your attorney peers break this stigma down, right? For somebody that would come to you and say, Marco, how did you get yourself out of sales? How did you get other people who could sell a legal service on your behalf and potentially never even speak to you at all? Like, how do you help them break down that mindset?
Yeah, so just to be clear, we do not do the non-attorney salesperson thing. I mean, intake, they're not attorneys, but we don't do the non-attorney salesperson. I know some firms do that. I'm not a big fan of that in family law. You can certainly do it in PI, it's totally fine. Yeah. In family law, I think there's just too many variables, and there are too many things you need to discuss as an attorney talking to a potential client, so we don't do it like that. So what I had to do was come up with a system in which I could train attorneys who are not business people. We're salespeople, but we don't like to admit it, but we're just not good at the intake part of sales usually. So I had to train them in order to be good at the sales and the closing part at intake. Right. So first I had to become good at it, and I had to read and learn and try things out and experiment. And then I came up with a system that functioned, and then I had to replicate that with the attorneys. And then we also role play every day. So we had to create systems to make that happen, because if you're not role playing every day, sales and closing, like you're going to lose it very, very quickly. You're not going to be super effective. Yeah. So, and in a nutshell is how we did it.
Yeah, it's a challenge that my SEO specialists face a lot, where we track every single phone call that comes in, we push to a CRM, we do all that for our clients, and it will record the calls too, so we actually have a VA in the Philippines who will audit if they, with their permission, to spot audit like their intake and their calls, because a lot of times, again, money's just falling through the intake process left and right, and it's really, really hard for a lot of them to be like, to pull themselves out of that. I have some clients that are pretty successful that insist on taking every single phone call 24 hours a day. And I'm like, you're going to burn out and you're really you are the bottleneck, whether you see it or not. It's a problem that we as marketers now are tackling because, again, I only make money if you make money at the end of the day here. So, okay. So then after you get through that there, at this point, I'm assuming if they're not qualified, right, you've trained them on to understand who's qualified. You just don't make the offer. So you just kind of redirect them somewhere else. You say, we're not a good fit. How does that go?
Yeah. So if they're not qualified, I mean, if they have a case that we can help them with, but they're just not the type of person that we want to help, really, we're going to let them off, let them down easy, and then we're going to give them a referral to a divorce attorney, really top shelf divorce attorney that's not us, right? And we're going to make that introduction with them. Yeah. If they call in and they have a PI case or something, then we have a list of people that we're just going to refer them out to.
Yeah. And that happens, I don't know how much it happens to you, but if you're doing like a lot of LSAs or paid traffic, another thing that we get from a lot of our clients, and this is one of the big knocks on search. I mean, all marketing, I think a lot of attorneys have an expectation of what marketing should deliver in terms of like not like good qualified leads. I actually tell them all the time that like a phone call is not a lead. It's not. It's a certain level of interest until they go through this process and you qualify them. Then that's a lead, right? Marketing qualified lead, sales qualified lead. So it's a constant kind of back and forth to get them to understand that. But also what happens with search marketing, a lot of the times attorneys are so close to the service, right? And you've been in the law space for so long that you kind of don't think about how the average layman person might be finding you, right? Which is just searching for an attorney, right? So a lot of the times what happens is they go to Google, they type in lawyer, right? And Google's going to kind of categorize those results based on what they think, and it could be an injury, it could be family. So you're going to get a lot of errant phone calls. So, and I tell my attorney clients all the time, like, you should be able to handle that in terms of setting up referral networks, referral systems, building your own flywheel of like, just because it's a non-relevant to your practice area doesn't mean that it's wasted, right? You can refer that out. Even if you don't get paid off it, build relationships, you know what I'm saying? Just grease the wheels back and forth. We work with design companies that send us leads for SEO and vice versa. We don't do design. We take no money off it. It's free business, right? Either way. Exactly.
Yep.
So, it's good to hear that because, again, a lot of attorneys just kick it aside like, oh, it wasn't qualified. It was bad marketing. It's bad marketing. I'm like, we cannot change the way that people are searching for you. We can't change their understanding of it. All we can do is read and react to what they're searching for. And then it's up to you to be a salesperson, to be a business owner, and think about how to handle that. Okay, so now you make them the offer, you set the price, right? You say, this is what it's going to cost, this is the process, $300 for a consultation. Right away, I'm assuming that's another qualifying question. If they balk, if they say no, then they're sure as hell not going to be able to pay your actual legal fees, right? If they can't pay $300.
Well, that's actually not entirely true. Like, they will just balk because they thought it was going to be free, right? Or maybe, some other reason. So what our job is, and what the intake's job is to sell the value, right? The features, advantage, benefits of what we do. And then if people will balk, and we'll do that, and we'll overcome objections, and that's a huge part of our role play is overcoming objections. And then lots of people who have balked come in, and they're perfectly good clients. They're great. It's just that they had sticker shock in the beginning because they didn't know the value of what we do.
Again, I know you told me that the job of intake is to sell the consult, and it looks like going through this that they're talking about what's happening on the consultation, but not actually what the outcome of the consultation is. In other words, what's this going to cost me to go through a full divorce? Do you get a lot of those questions up front, or have you tested saying just, again, to let them know, or are you putting all of your chips on your attorneys to sell them on the value? Like if it's 50 grand for a divorce, right? Whatever it looks like, I don't know what it costs. It could probably be a lot more depending on how bad it is, right? But like, are you telling them that ahead of time, or are you waiting until they talk to an attorney to present them the final price?
It really depends on whether they want to know that information. So some people don't even want to know that information. They just want to get in with an attorney and they kind of know it's going to cost a lot. So our average case is about $10,000. And we talk with a lot of people and we'll tell them that, and they say, yeah, that's about what I thought. So they might not ask because they kind of expect it's going to be expensive. But then some people do ask, how much is this going to cost me in the end? What's an estimate? And we've trained our people to answer that question. So we're very, very upfront and transparent about those things. So we actually have a list of, if it's a divorce with mediation, it's probably going to be this much. If you have kids, if you have money, we do temporary orders. If we have to do a motion to enforce, it's probably going to be this much. So we do have that built out, and we readily share that information with clients. And this was actually something that I didn't used to do. I didn't do this until I went to Grant Cardone's Sales Essentials workshop, and they totally changed my mind. They said, no, you should just be super upfront about this, because everybody has that question. And if you don't give them that information, they get upset with you, and they're thinking about it all the time in the back of their head. So just address it and then move on and tell them why you charge what you do and what the value is in solving their problem.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's two schools of thought on, so again, we're talking about the consultation. If we're talking about like the full cost of services, there's two schools of thought. I think just depending on which sales guru you ask, right? A lot of sales people will tell you not to present pricing up front, because then if you have a really good salesman who can then sell them on the value of what it is, you don't want to give them sticker shock and have them balk. I'm actually in the other school of thought. Like if you go to our website, we put pricing on our website. And the reason for that is because we're very good at marketing. We generate a lot of inbound leads, and I don't want my sales team getting on the phone and I don't want them to do convincing. It's not really what we do in this line of business, right? It's much more of a consultative process, probably very similar to what you're doing, right? Now, again, it's very different though, because in your space, there's so many emotions involved, right? With us, it's black and white. It's, if I pay you X, can you make me X plus one, right? And if I can show that and I can build rapport with you, then we're good. So I don't think there's a right or wrong way to it. My other company, we don't do that. We never put pricing on it. We have a kind of a high ticket coaching program that we put them through. And that's also a very emotional sale. And what we find there is that we want to have them go through the entire consultation process and really show them their emotional state of where they're going to be after they go through the program. Again, very similar to divorce. I would imagine a lot of how this is being sold is, I'm married, have a new child, very happily married. But like when my wife and I do fight, it puts an entire damper, like it's harder for me to work. There's stuff going on. It's only imagine going through that emotional drain and process of going through divorce. They say one of the most stressful things in life is going through divorce, right? So you being able to alleviate that from them, I don't think you can put a price on it. Personally, I don't know if there's a price that you can put on that. So, I think obviously you know what you're doing, but I think that there's really no right or wrong way to do it. If they ask, of course, tell them. If not, let them go through the process of talking to an attorney.
And I think it really depends on who you are as a law firm owner as well. So I'm that kind of guy, like super upfront about everything. I live out loud. I talk about money. I talk about success. I talk about these things. It's just, and my life has gotten significantly better since I've started doing that and sharing those sorts of things and just sharing information and not hiding things. And that bleeds into how we sell, because that's how I am. So if you're not like that, it makes you super uncomfortable, you're not going to be able to sell that way, then maybe go another way. I tend to think though that when people search for something, whether they're searching for toothpaste or they're searching for Mercedes S580, they want to know what the price is, and they kind of want to know it up front. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's always going to be in the back of their head gnawing at them. So we just share the information up front, so it's not gnawing at them.
100%. I love this here too. Let's highlight this in yellow. So you are not letting them off the call, right? So if there's an interest or they accept, they're like, okay, yeah, I'll pay the $300. You're getting them to pay while your intake person is still on the phone, correct?
Yes,
okay,
absolutely.
That's huge.
Skin in the game, man.
Yeah,
they need skin in the game up front, and as much of it as humanly possible.
Yeah. And for context, we've, again, done a lot of kind of like process development for injury, accident. Intake is obviously incredibly important there. And it's the same thing where like, you cannot let them get off the phone without signing a document. You need to text them a DocuSign, have it ready to go, have everything just loaded up, ready to go, and get them to sign, because to your point, as soon as they hang up that phone, there's a pretty good chance that they're going to call somebody else. And
this is actually one of the things that I learned from my PI friends because I realized that so things are different in family law and PI, but one of the things I realized that we were doing incorrectly, that PI attorneys were doing correctly, is PI is all about speed to close, right? So criminal and PI are very much about speed to close. And we weren't doing the speed to close thing, and we don't actually do like speed to ultimate close, because we want people to come in and meet with us face to face, because our closing percentage is higher. more skin in the game. We can assess them and their emotions better and so on and so forth. But what we wanted to do was get skin in the game immediately, like PI attorneys do, and paying the $300 right then and there. And, that sort of thing is really super important even for family law attorneys.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I mean, even with us, like when I do, we have a 3-part close process here at the agency. And we have one biz dev rep, and I tell them all the time, I'm like, if you let an attorney go, the chance of them answering your email is like 10%. Even if they're super, super interested, you have to get them a calendar invite for the follow-up call on that call, and you have to wait until they accept it. Because otherwise, getting in touch with an attorney via email, even via phone, it's impossible. The decay on an attorney leaves. Yeah, it's the worst. It's the worst. It's the biggest challenge we have in the sales process. Luckily,
I actually make myself, I know what you're talking about, because I make myself incredibly difficult to get a hold of, right? Like I haven't had a phone in my office for 7 years now or something like that. Yeah. I don't really respond to emails. I talk to my executive team. That's like it. Yeah. Right. And so, if you think you're going to get a law firm owner to like call you back or send you an email, like, dude, that ain't happening.
Yeah. Even with our clients, it's funny. We have a client now. We don't do a lot of website design, but we're building this client a website in order to just migrate him off the platform. And I cannot get him he's paying us a lot of money for it. I can't get him for the life of him to approve a single page on that website. And he refuses to give up that control. We're just stuck in this holding pattern with him. Yeah.
It's like an endless cycle.
Yeah. A law firm lifestyle. I love it. Is there anything else? So first of all, thank you for this. Has been amazing. Again, the simplicity of it, the directness of it. I'm sure that there's a lot of sub processes that probably dive off of this when it comes to training and conversations. Is there anything else from an intake tips point of view that you think is worth other attorneys knowing?
Man, I think the most important things are you have a very, very well-developed script that you have put together with a professional sales team. Right. That's what I did with Grant Cardone, and it's made us millions and millions and millions. So I think that's very important. And then you train your people on it every single day, and you expect them to actually follow the script, because the freewheeling stuff, like, maybe every once in a while they'll close somebody they wouldn't. But if you can get them to just follow the script, to have the script that's incredibly well developed, you know exactly what the percentage is, like how much it's going to close, right? And then you can make adjustments on it, and you can make predictions off of that. And that is super invaluable. That almost no law firm can do that sort of thing, but it alleviates so much stress. Yeah. So I think those are probably the most important parts of it. And then you have to be calmy about it, right? You have to tell them, no, you are going to follow this script. If you don't follow this script, you go find another job, right, where you freewheel or do whatever you want. When you're here, you follow this, you do it our way. If you have suggestions about it, more than happy to talk to you. But until then, like, this is what you say every single time on the phone.
I love it. I appreciate your time, Marco. I know you're busy. I know you got a lot going on. It was not too tough to get in touch with you. I found you on LinkedIn and was able to work my way through Adriana, one of your team members. Again, I really appreciate your time, all the insights and knowledge that you shared with us. Tell the people what the best place to find you is to follow along with more content that you have.
LinkedIn is the only social that I do nowadays. I decided that my life is much better without X or Facebook or anything like that. So it's on LinkedIn. You can just go on there and search Marco Brown, and I'm the first one to come up.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Marco.
Okay. Thanks a lot. It's a great conversation.